First Nations represent 6% of Alberta, but 13% of opioid deaths. First Nations people are 3 to 4 times higher than non-First Nations people who die from OD. 246 First Nations people in Alberta died from opioids. In 2016, 32.6% of all drug and alcohol deaths were fentanyl poisoning. By 2018, these deaths increased to 54.3%.
I believe we are in crisis with the opioid situation that is happening today. I believe as First Nations people, come up with strategies and work together to support and help one another.
Every 19 minutes, someone dies from an accidental drug overdose. Most of the time, it's from prescription drugs like oxycodone or hydrocodone. These drugs all belong to a family of drugs called opioids.
The word addiction to me means it's a spiritual disease. That tends to afflict all 4 quadrants of being.
But one thing that I've learned about addictions is that it's so much more than just drugs and alcohol. You know, there's people like me that have been through the same thing, you know? It's so much easier just to numb it than it is to talk about it.
The word addiction to me kind of is when your life has become unmanageable, where you've kind of reached a point of using that you can't go back from.
Not only a physical addiction, but it is a psychological addiction.
That there's no limit to what's possible in this world. I've found that, for myself, I've been a high school dropout, somebody who's lived on the streets for a long period of time, been an addict, been capable of doing so many immoral and illegal things to fuel that addiction. I found that there's nothing that I can't do if I put my mind to it, but it has to come from a good place. It has to come from a clean, sober area in your life that you're focused, that your intentions are going to be true. To this day, I'm very grateful that I'm nearly 15 years sober. Next week will be 15 years sober for me. I've had my own construction business for 14 years. I employ and sponsor many people, and that is not the most important thing in my life. The most important thing I can do today is to get up and try and help somebody who's suffering, who's in pain, who needs to help. And I'm very grateful that I've been fortunate enough to travel all over Turtle Island to be able to be a part of healing circles, ceremonies, to do motivational speaking, to help share this good red road that has saved my life, and I know will save many others if we seek it with a true heart.
My name is Lyle Moore, and I'm a counselor for Enoch Cree Nation. I just want to share, some of my story. I was a young man, grew up here largely in Enoch, went to school here, to high school in Spruce Grove. Then when I was 19, I college football in a school called Mount San Jacinto, Screaming Eagles. And, largely in that time, growing up, it was did a lot of ceremony from when I was young. Right from when I was young till I was about 18, 19 years old. Then when I went to go play football, it was a great time in California, 1990, a lot of things happening, but started to struggle with addictions a bit. And it was only because, I won't say it was only because, but it was because at the time playing football, everyone's doing it, right? So you get peer pressure, people to tell you that and everything else. And play a game, you drink, you practice, you drink. Pretty soon you just drink because it's, Friday's coming up, and pretty soon you're just drinking because the sun came up. But at the end of the day, it's really, it gets out of hand. It could get out of hand, at times. But growing up, a lot of my friends, they're not here anymore. Guys my age. But because of, making choices we've made, you never know. You never know with addiction. Or just drinking in general, being young, fearless. thinking that, you have your whole life in front of you and that it'll never go away.
Painkillers used to be used exclusively in hospitals for patients with broken limbs or other serious critical injuries. Makes sense, right? You were really, really hurting. They gave you this pill, then you got fine, and then you left the hospital. But in the late 1990s, some pharmaceutical companies began a campaign to sell more opioids as painkillers by having doctors prescribe them as being non-addictive. In other words, you can't get addicted if you take this.
I believe that as a First Nation person that there is an obligation with the federal government, the Department of Indian Affairs, to pay for prescriptions for our people that are non-addicting. At this time, there's no arguments in any courts supporting us on this, but I do know that I can go with any prescription to a pharmacy that is an addicting opioid and it will be covered by Indian Affairs. Anything that is non-addicting, Toradol or other medications is not covered by Indian Affairs. So that puts our people in a very vulnerable position when it comes to this crisis that we're in.
More mental health. Like I mean, like more people to, I don't know, I just feel like people are still not speaking up about it. Like they're not speaking up about their depression or their anxiety. It's almost like they're embarrassed. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. Everybody deals with it. They just don't want to talk about it. It doesn't make you weak. I think it makes you stronger, actually.
I'd like to see us partner up with a treatment facility, and maybe even do an aftercare program and not something on the reserve, because as been stated before, like you can't get, you can, but you have to work really hard at it and you're basically by yourself.
I believe Enoch has been leaps and bounds ahead of where a lot of other communities are lacking in that they do have resources to help support cultural healing and almost reintroduce some of those resources in traditional ways that haven't been around in a long time. So I believe it's going in a good direction, and I think it'll continue to grow if they keep doing so in a genuine way and honestly and sincerely want to help the people and grow this community to be a healthy, thriving tribe that it once was.
Been struggling with addiction pretty much since I was about 12. I started drinking and smoking weed, and that progressed to all kinds of other drugs. And, my dad's addiction affected me pretty deeply. As a kid, when you see your dad drinking and stuff like that, right? And then he's not a part of your life.
Through all of my addiction there, I thought more of myself than I did her, but in my head, I thought it's better that I wasn't around her because of the way I was still doing crack and I was still drinking and I was still partying and I was selfish, I guess, that I should have thought of her more, but I don't know why I didn't. I thought maybe because the way I was would hurt her more. If I was part of her life where I thought maybe she'd be better off. It would probably been that day when I was lowering my stuff down off the balcony and I had no power and I'm sitting in the dark and I'm doing my last hoot with a candle and a piece of spaghetti because my buddy said I didn't even have enough for a lighter and he said spaghetti would burn, and so I was hooting with that and I was sitting there in the dark and almost like looking outside and I just kind of broke down and I phoned my sister and I was crying and I said, Lynn, I don't know what to do, I don't. And she was there, she took me into her house, and within a week I was on a plane going to Victoria, and I was... You have a great day.
Yeah,